Salvete discipuli. In today's lesson, we will learn what happens after Clemens enters the workshop of the mob boss Eutychus, and along the way, we will also learn all about neuter nouns. Okay, so Clemens enters the workshop and the action continues. Eutychus in lecto recumbebat. There's going to be vocabulary provided in addition to your attempt to translate earlier off like the PDF. You might want to use this study time also to once again, like in your brain, using the vocabulary provided, try to see if you can recall the translation and reconstruct it before you see it appear. Eutychus was lying down on a couch. Cibum e canistro gustābat. He was tasting food from a box. Now we get the word canister from this Latin word. Valde sudabat et manus in capillis servi tergebat. He was sweating a lot, and he was wiping his hands in the hair of a slave. Now, notice there is something here that you've never seen before, okay? A U with a long mark is the mark of the fourth declension noun. This is the accusative plural of this, okay? So he was wiping his hands in the hair of a slave. I guess this slave gives a new meaning to the word towel boy. Get it? Get it? Like in sports, there's like a boy whose job it is to give towels, towel boy. So he's like literally wiping his hands in capillis, this is plural, in the hair, genitive singular, servi, of a slave. Postquam Clementem vidit, quis es homuncule in Quid? After he saw Clemens, "Who are you, little man?" he said. Little man, homuncule. Okay, so let's take a moment to review what we call the vocative case, and homuncule was an example of it. Only second declension nouns and names have a special form for when you address someone, okay? So if it ends in a US and you're addressing that person, you change the US to a short E. So his name is Marcus, but when you address him, you say Marke. And so you tell me, if you were addressing Quintus, what would you say? Quinte. And if you're addressing the little man, as Eutychus just did, he says, homuncule. Keep in mind, when you have an IUS, the rule's different. An IUS becomes one long I. So if you're addressing Caecilius, you say Caecili. And if you're addressing Salvius, you say Salvi. And we had that. Remember when Bregons had the dog and he said, Salvi, specta canem, look at the dog. And we noted at the time he had no business directly addressing his master Salvius. Okay, so everything that's not second declension does not have a special vocative case. Okay, so when you're addressing somebody, you just simply use the nominative singular. So if you're talking to Caesar, Caesar, you just say Caesar, and Metella, and King, Rex. Okay, back to the story. Quis te huc admisit, quid vis? Okay, let's just think for a moment. If you had to take a wild guess, what does admisit mean? Okay, so what's the basic root of this verb? Yeah, you know the verb misit means to send, okay? And you know that ad means to, so literally to send to a place, okay? Huc means to here. We have the older English word hither. Okay, so again, ad plus misit, literally to send to, and we turn that back into the present, admitto. Okay? Now that you look at it in the present tense, what English word do we probably derive from this? Yeah, to admit. Now, we have like to admit a fact, like somebody says something, yeah, I admit that's true. But we also have the word like admittance, like to a theater. And that's what's going on here. Okay? To admit means to let someone in somewhere. So, put all this together. Quis is the extraordinarily irregular second person singular you want form. So, who let you in here? What do you want? But remember, we have hic, which means here, but this is literally to here. Who let you in to here, to this place? Quintus Caecilius Clemensum, respondit Clemens. I'm Quintus Caecilius Clemens, responded Clemens. Now remember, because he's a freedman, he now gets to have 3 names, which is what a free Roman should have. Notice the names he chose. He chose names in tribute to the 2 men who have in fact been so important to him. Okay, Caecilius was his former master. Quintus was the son who inherited him but then set him free for the great service he did in making sure that that signet ring got to him. So, and he keeps, of course, his old name Clemens. De tabernā quam latrones diripuerunt cognoscere volo. Okay, we just had volo. It means to want. Now, wild guess. Cognoscere. Okay, I want blank about the shop which the bandits ransacked. It means to know. Now, we've got a lot of English words related to this. To recognize is to know something. You also have like to be cognizant of something is to know something. I want to know about the shop which the bandits ransacked. Okay, so remember, relative pronoun here referring to the shop. Okay. And latrones is the subject of diripuerunt, and volo, I want. So I want to know about the shop which the bandits ransacked. Okay? It would not be a good English translation to keep the Latin word order, about the shop which the bandits ransacked, I want to know. Okay, that's not as good. Recast the sentence for better English. Now, here are all the ways to know in Latin. Okay, so we have a verb, scioscire, means to know a fact. But that's not what we have here, okay? Cognoscere means 2 things. It can mean to know a person, okay? But it can also mean to come to know a fact. That is to say, to learn. So when he says, I want to know about something, he doesn't currently know it. He wants to come to know it. Okay? In Spanish today, conocer, which is derived from this still, that's the verb to know a person. Okay? Now, the Spanish verb saber, to know, comes from the Latin verb sapio sapere, which means to be wise, which is also the root from which we get homo sapiens, meaning wise man. Nam illa taberna nunc mea est. This is still Clemens speaking. For that shop is now mine. Eutychus postquam hoc audivit Clementem amicissime salutavit et eum per officinam duxit. Okay, so I believe you know every word here. Okay, we learned officinam means workshop, also the source of the English word office. We learned that in the last lesson. Everything else you know, except we've never seen this form, amicissime. If you had to take a wild guess without ever seeing it before, what are you going to think it might have something to do with? Yeah, you're thinking, well, it looks like the word amicus, which means friend, okay? But I've seen this issime ending before. It's like very, but then it's like an adverb. And so you put it all together, amicus, friend, amicissimus literally means like very friend, meaning very friendly, okay? So intente means intently. Amicissime, in a very friendly manner. That would be the best translation of that. And so Eutychus, after he heard this, greeted Clemens in a very friendly manner and led him through the office. Okay, so Eutychus is thinking, all right, well, the last guy who owned that shop wouldn't pay me the protection money. I had him killed. I ransacked the shop. I did all that as a lesson to the other shopkeepers that you don't refuse to pay me the protection money. But this is theoretically the new owner, and, I'm going to obviously make him the offer that he needs to pay me the protection money, and if he's smart, he's going to pay it, and I'll just keep making more money. So, ipse Clementi fabros suos demonstravit. He himself demonstrated his craftsmen to Clemens. Now, we get demonstrate from that, but it means basically like to show or to show off his craftsmen to Clemens. So Eutychus is also in the glassmaking business, okay? He's got, in fact, the biggest operation going, in addition to the protection racket he's running. In officina erant triginta vitrearii Aegyptii qui olas ornatas faciebant. If viginti means 20, wild guess on triginta? That's right, it means 30. Okay, so a vitrearius is a glassmaker, and ola means bowl. Take a wild guess, though. Come up with an adjective that maybe is related to ornatas. In the office were 30 Egyptian glassmakers who were making ornate bowls. Diligenter laborabant, quod aderat villicus, qui virgam vibrabat. They were working diligently because a slave manager was there who was waving a staff, okay? We had this same thing way back last year. Remember, they had the people whose job it was to, the praecursores, whose job it was to push the people off the road when Salvius and Quintus were on their way to the party of cogidubnus, okay? So these people are working diligently because they're afraid of getting beaten. Eutychus postquam Clementi officinam ostendit, negotium agere coepit. Eutychus, after he showed the office to Clemens, began to do business. Now, coepit's a funny word. It only exists in the past tense. Okay, so coepit means began. You would use the verb incipio if you want to use to begin in the present tense. Okay, and it takes an infinitive. Negotium ago, that's a verb that we've had since book 1. He began to do business. And by do business, we mean he's going to talk to him about the protection money that he expects Clemens to start to pay. Periculosum est mi amice in via vitrearium inquit. Here we have again a vocative, okay? Amicus, friend, but if you're addressing somebody as friend, you say amice, mi amice, my friend. It is dangerous, my friend, in the street of the glassmakers. Well, the reason it's dangerous is Eutychus makes it dangerous for anybody that doesn't pay him the protection money. Multi fures ad hanc viam veniunt, multi latrones. Many thieves come to this street, many bandits. Okay, so once again, you have to resupply logically veniunt back down here. So many thieves come to this street, many bandits also come. You could render it that way. Multa aedificia delent. Now take a look, before we go on, we're going to be studying the neuter nouns. Aedificium, This is the nominative singular, okay? One of the hallmarks of a neuter in the second declension is that its nominative looks like what you first learned as accusative singular, okay? So the genitive is a normal second declension genitive, like we had earlier in capillis servi, in the hair of a slave. So aedificii would be of a building. The plural of a neuter is always a, okay? So again, you learned that a looks like the nominative singular of a first declension, but it's also the nominative and accusative plural of a neuter noun. Okay, so we are going to master neuters before we move on too much farther, okay? So this sentence, they destroy many buildings. Okay, so again, there are three genders, feminine, masculine, and neuter. Neuter just means like neither. Okay, first declension nouns are almost all feminine. You've got puella, girl, femina, woman, mensa, table. Okay, so yes, it's true that many of them describe like an animal or a human that is female, but an inanimate object like mensa can also be first declension noun, and if you were to describe it with adjectives, you would use the feminine forms. Now, an exception to the rule that first declension is all feminine is, for instance, the noun agricola, farmer, okay? It is first declension in all of its forms, but if the farmer in question is a male, you would then describe that farmer using second declension endings on the adjective. Second declension nouns are almost all masculine. So you've got servus, slave, nuntius, messenger, and again, a non-human example, hortus, garden. Okay, so the exception, by the way, to this rule is the second declension names of some trees are feminine. Third declension can be either gender, and sometimes it's logical. So, for instance, mater, mother, is feminine. Pater, father, is masculine. Other times, a third declension noun just simply has a gender, and if you need to add an adjective, you need to memorize what that gender is. Okay? So, the same ending, as it were, the er, a good mother, mater bona, good father, pater bonus. Okay, now, here's what you need to know about neuter nouns. Okay, they are neither masculine nor feminine. There are second, third, and fourth declension neuter nouns. Okay, so one rule, nominative and accusative of neuters is always the same. Okay, so whatever it is in the nominative singular, that is also the accusative singular. And the plural of neuter is always a. And once again, whatever the nominative plural is, that exact same form is also the accusative plural. Okay, so now that you know this, you can demonstrate your knowledge. Aedificium, nominative singular, aedificium, accusative singular. Aedificia, nominative plural, aedificia, accusative plural. Okay, so that's the word for building. Take a mental snapshot of that and now apply your newfound knowledge. What would be the nominative singular of gift? What would be the accusative plural of gift? Okay, so now that you know nominative singular and accusative singular are always identical, you know that whatever this is also this. And you also know that whatever this is also this. And so it is donum, donum, dona, dona. Okay, you can even take it one step further. If you know it's a neuter that ends with a um in the nominative singular, and you know that to form the plural, you're just going to change the um to an a, I can give you just the nominative singular of the word for wagon, and you can reconstruct everything as plaustum, plaustrum, plaustra, plaustra. You can even do it the other direction, okay? So if I tell you that bella, which means wars in the nominative plural, if I tell you that it is a second declension neuter, you can extrapolate the singular from bella to be what? Think it through. bellum, 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 bella, bella. Okay, so there are third declension neuters. Now look at this. This looks, if you didn't know that this was a third declension neuter, you would think this is a second declension. You'd say, oh, that's a second declension. The accusative must be corpum. It's not, though, okay? It is a third declension. And the accusative singular is also this same us. The plural is corpora, okay? Again, an a is always the plural of a neuter. We've had this one, agmen, agmen, and look, in the third declension, the plural is often something slightly different in its root. So agmina, meaning rows of soldiers. Finally, there is only one fourth declension neuter noun. It is the word for horn, okay? In the nominative singular cornu, cornu also accusative singular, because that's how neuters roll. And the plural is cornua for both nominative plural and accusative plural. Okay, so another final point to make about neuters. Since the nominative and the accusative are the same form, once again, word order matters. In this sentence here, we know that mater has to be the subject because patrem is accusative, okay? Mater is nominative, and this would mean the mother loves the father. But in the plural of a third declension, the es ending is both nominative plural and accusative plural. And in that case, we have learned that word order matters. The first one is the subject, so that would be the merchants praise the gladiators. So take a look at this then. If we have neuter nouns, okay, so bellum, war, could be nominative or accusative, and initium, beginning, could be nominative or accusative. Once again, the first one is the subject. Bellum initium habet would mean the war has a beginning. Okay, we move on. Omnes igitur tabernarii auxilium a me petunt. Therefore, all the shopkeepers seek help from me. Okay, so he's using code words, you know. It's like they don't seek help from him. They pay the money so that they don't get killed and their shops ransacked. Tabernarii mihi pecuniam dant, ego eis praesidium. Okay, so take a look at what's happening here. The shopkeepers give money to me. I understood, even though the person of the verb has shifted, the understanding is I give, okay? So literally, the shopkeepers give money to me, I to them protection, okay? But better English, you really do have to add I give protection to them. Tabernam tuam servare possum. I am able to protect your shop. And again, Eutychus is the one who ransacked it. If he just stops ransacking it, that's his version of protecting it. Omnes tabernarii mihi decem aureos quotanis dare solent. All the shopkeepers usually give me 10 gold pieces every year. Okay, so the verb solent is to do something usually, and it takes an infinitive of that thing you usually do. Okay, so the NT here, this is the normal verb. You know, all the shopkeepers are accustomed to do an action or usually do something. What they usually do is they give. What do they give? Decem aureos, 10 gold pieces. How often do they give it? Quotanis, every year. Now, the reality is, this is not so much money that it's going to break Clemens. If he took so much money from people that they couldn't even afford to do business, well, then they wouldn't be able to raise money to pay it. So it's not completely a deal breaker, but for Clemens, it's just the principle of the thing. Paulum est, num tu praesidium meum recusare vis. It's little. You don't want to refuse my protection, do you? Okay, so remember, num creates a question which implies the answer no. So this is almost like I'm making you an offer you can't refuse, literally, because if you do refuse my offer, you might meet the same fate that last guy did. Clemens tamen Eutycho non credebat. Clemens, however, was not trusting Eutychus. Eutycho is dative because credebat takes a dative object. Remember, we just learned that phenomenon of dative objects is bigger than the verbs credere and favere, to trust and to favor. The verb obstare, to block or to stand in the way of, also takes a dative object. Ego ipse tabernam in quo habito servare possum in quid Clemens. Okay, so in quo habito, in which I live. This is a relative clause that's interfering between this infinitive and its direct object. Okay, so I myself am able to protect the shop in which I live. And again, I'll suggest you can't translate this sentence using Latin word order, like I myself, the shop in which I live to protect, can. Okay, that's not English. We have gotten to a point in our Latin where you have to read the whole Latin through and then consider strongly recasting the order into something that's more comprehensible English. Praesidium tuum operasque tuas floci non facio. This idiom, facio floci. Floci literally means a tuft of wool. So I do not make something of a tuft of wool means to like not give a hoot about something. I don't give a hoot about your protection and your hired thugs. Okay. It's not really that strong of a term. I'm just having fun with that. Tum libertus securus exeit. Then the freedman left without a care. All right, people, was this a good idea? Is Clemens really going to get away with this? Well, the last guy didn't. We're going to have to wait as we continue to read stories to see what happens next.